History is full of amazing stories and memorable people.
But we don't care about them.
No hits, deep tracks only.
Some of the most influential people in the world have been completely overlooked or just plain forgotten.
We're digging deep into the history books to bring you their stories.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Matt.
We're not historians. We're just two guys who enjoy a great story and plenty of laughs.
This is History's B-Side. How do we usually start episodes?
Today's B-Sider.
Today's B-Sider is... Good Lord, how do I want to start this? So as the listeners who are most recently caught up on our weekly episodes know, this episode marks the bittersweet end of my time as a host with History's B-Side, and we thought it would be a good way to end our year of podcasting by kind of having a casual review of our time recording the podcast, our favorite episodes, favorite topics, what we've learned. What do you think, Phil?
It's Matt and Phil unscripted. We are not good, just with no preparation going into any type of recording.
Especially when you're double fisting.
Jeez.
Phil made me open
Give it up
wine.
on the professionalism of our podcast.
I've double fisted for every episode, Phil. I don't know what you're talking about.
Water and tea.
You drink beer when you need refreshed. You drink wine when you're getting boring.
When I'm getting boring, you drink wine? I mean, I don't blame you.
When we're getting boring.
I'm sure our listeners feel the same way.
The wine
Although,
spices things up.
Probably a lot of people listen to podcasts on their way to work in the morning, which
That's
all
true.
the more reason, I guess.
Well, our listeners should know that tonight's going to get spicy because Phil has a 22-ounce rum and coke on his desk in a beer stein. And I am indeed double fisting wine and beer, so...
That sounds like a poor mixture.
You know, I'm trying it out. We'll see how it goes.
Our listeners will soon find out that this is a much more casual episode, partially because we're just talking, but also because we're going to end this one by giving you all kind of a taste of the bonus episodes that we've been doing every month since we started the podcast. It's a fun game we like to play called History's B-Side Battles, and since it's Matt's last, real episode on the podcast, figured we would do the finale publicly for everyone to hear, not just for our membership. But you can, of course, hear the full catalog of past bonus episodes by joining as a member on historiesbside.com.
We didn't want to save this month's hysteria just for our members. We wanted to share the glory of Phil and I arguing over super fight prompts with everybody.
People have listened to us talk long enough that they need to know what we're really like off the podcast, and it's generally us just making nonsense arguments about
That's fair.
whatever comes to mind.
So what were your favorite episodes?
I think I've said before that I actually like your topics better than mine, and maybe that's because I didn't have to do all the research. It's kind of like everyone prefers a meal that they didn't have to cook, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think I had some interesting topics that I enjoyed learning about, but it's also kind of nice to just sit back and listen to a story that I hadn't heard before that you researched. So I really we reference it a lot, Gregor McGregor, which was just a hilarious, completely ridiculous story.
Yeah, kind of out of left field.
I also really liked, not that it was super long ago history, but the Max Martin episode was a nice little blast from our childhood.
Yeah.
Reliving some of the classic hits of modern history, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed researching for that episode, particularly because of that, because it was a little bit more relatable from my perspective versus, Cleisthenes and the Clovis people.
The Clovis people was tough.
I have no connection to the world they live in. Well, not no connection, just not as large of a one as I do with Max Martin.
But even some of the ones that maybe we don't connect with as well as white males in the 21st century. Like, I thought Pauli Murray was an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Someone who really kind of paved the way for a lot of the stuff that we've talked and learned about a lot in the last 2 years in American society. And there's certainly a lot of topics that we've covered that went along with those too.
Yeah. I agree. I liked some of those topics. Like Pauli Murray was great. I liked CJ Walker. Laura Bassi was another good one.
That's the one I forget we even did.
Yeah. And like Laura, I feel like Laura Bassi and Ada Lovelace are similar types of episodes. But I enjoyed doing those. I think that Helga Meyer and the Ghost Camaro was obviously a lot of fun for both of us, as was Maria Oktoberskaya, which I feel like is the female version of him.
Yeah.
Mad Churchill. And I also like the dog one. I can't remember his name now. Sergeant Stubby.
Sergeant Stubby, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
I mean, you mentioned Laura Bassi and Ada Lovelace being kind of similar. I saw a post. I'm in this like history podcast group on Facebook, and someone was asking for podcast recommendations about history in STEM. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we've actually covered quite a bit of that. They've mostly been your episodes, I think, but like Laura Bassi, Ada Lovelace, obviously too in that. But we had James come on to talk about Alfred Wallace.
Yeah.
The Clovis people ties into that with geology or anthropology and archaeology.
Like Indiana Jones with the whip.
And then even like Rosalind Franklin and Ignace Semmelweis kind of fit that same category as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of different topics through a pretty wide variety of time periods. I feel like we felt like we were over-covering World War II and the Civil War at times, but that's just the nature of how easy it is to access stories from different time periods. But I feel like the overwhelming lesson that I took away from doing all of this was that there's a lot of connections in the different stories throughout history, and I think there's a lot to be learned about human nature, because I found very similar themes coming up almost every episode, regardless of what time period it was in and regardless of the topic's relationship to the historical event. I found that we were talking about similar themes and concepts over and over and over again. So I almost feel like history isn't all that different era to era.
I agree with that, but I also think that we too easily slip into the cliche of, oh, this is exactly like Nazi Germany or whatever. And like all the people that we talked about have very similar themes, and not that they all had similar themes. There's a lot of overlap between some of the topics that we covered, but they're all very different stories. You know, just because something has similar themes to Nazi Germany or to the Civil War or anything else that we talked about doesn't mean that what we're currently going through is exactly like that. And I think that's kind of the importance of understanding history. I mean, I certainly didn't have the grasp on history that I thought I did when we started recording these episodes.
Yeah.
And I think kind of maybe not, but I think the way that we talk about our topics kind of reflects how we've grown as researchers and learners and presenters over the course of the last 56 weeks or so.
Yeah. Do you feel like we've achieved our goal of knowing more about history?
I think I know more about history. I don't think I'm by any means like super intelligent about history or
no
could call myself an expert on anything.
What if you get selected for like a history trivia team purely based on the fact that you were a host of a history podcast?
I think my team would feel very let down that they got the co-host of History's B-Side.
Is it going to be like a Billy Madison sort of situation?
Wouldn't be a History's B-Side episode if you didn't reference a movie I haven't seen.
Oh my God, how have you not seen Billy Madison?
I think I have seen it, but it's been in such a long time, and all the Adam Sandler movies run together.
A new project for Phil is to go back through all of our episodes, listen to them all, front to back, 1 through 55, and just list all of the movie references that I made that you weren't able to participate in with me, and then you have to go watch all those movies. And in a couple years, when you finally get all that finished, you can call me.
I feel like on an early episode we made a joke about starting a History's B-side book list or movie list or something.
Yeah.
And then I sometimes I'll go back and listen to an old episode and I'll be like, I'll say on the episode, have you ever seen this movie? And then you say no, and I'll say, well, neither have I, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
Have you seen Nightmare Alley?
No.
Don't. It's very long. It's very slow.
Okay. Is that relevant to anything?
I watched it today.
Oh.
Or attempted to watch it, I should say.
And it wasn't good?
It's not that it wasn't good. It was just very, very slow. Like the action did not move quickly. I mean, it's also a 2.5 hour movie, so I was like, I don't know if I can do 2.5 hours of this.
Right.
Anyway. Movie tangent over.
That's how people think when they see we release a new episode and it's like an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do that long with these two guys.
I think we're a little bit quicker than the movie was moving. So do you feel confident calling yourself a podcaster after a year?
I mean, yes. I think I read somewhere that like only 30% of podcasts make it to a year or something like that. It might even be less than that. So I'm pretty proud of us that we put out as many episodes as we did, as consistently as we did. Like we literally put one out every single week for over a year, despite some pretty, drastic circumstances that I think we both dealt with in the past year.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of the amount of work that we put in. It was certainly a lot more work than I expected it to be. I really thought that we would like pick a topic and then skim the Wikipedia page and maybe an article and be able to throw something together. But I mean, these episodes really have been like hours of research and then 2 hours of recording and then hours of editing.
Yeah. I did not know as how much time and work it would take to maintain it with just two people.
Right. And I think you can definitely notice the difference between our first couple episodes, both in the quality of the audio and the equipment.
Yeah.
And also just the content and how well researched or how knowledgeable we sound on the topic compared to the later episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Podcasting is kind of a unique medium. As long as your information is interesting and well presented, I don't think it necessarily matters the quality of your equipment as much. Although listeners might disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do a lot with just like you said, a really cheap microphone and then Audacity, as long as you like learned how to properly use Audacity. I'm not even totally sure I know how to use Audacity fully.
You know better than
I'm
I
sure
do.
there's more we could do to like edit and polish these, but
well, how do you feel everything went? I mean, I'm planning to continue this for as long as I can, even once you kind of back out of it.
yeah.
But I mean, you're the one kind of wrapping up here. What do you think of your experience podcasting here?
I feel like we did a good job. I'm proud of the product we ended up putting out. I think you're right. Like the first couple episodes are a little rough, but we adjusted quickly, I think, and they got really smooth, I would say, by 5 or 6 episodes in, and only got better from there. I'm impressed with how many continuous listeners we have. Mm-hmm. I expected some people to listen just out of curiosity or because we were spreading the word through our friends and family. But yeah, I even back, last summer when it was 60 unique listeners or whatever, I was impressed with those numbers. And, it's added another layer, I think, of satisfaction that not only did we produce these, but people consumed them.
I am impressed how many listeners we have outside of just like the Youngstown area, because I think when we started, that's kind of what we expected to be very local. Obviously, that was when you were living in town, and
yeah,
a lot of our listeners started with our friends and families. And honestly, I was surprised right when we started how many listeners we had, but it's only grown in the past year that we've done it. Like now, I think our Youngstown listeners only make up a very small fraction of our total listeners, which is awesome. I don't really know where all our listeners are coming from, how people are finding out about it, but it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see how the podcast has grown and spread. And I mean, I think it's obviously a compliment to us. I'm very flattered that people want to listen to us and seek out the podcast, but I think it's a compliment to listeners too that, not only are you looking for an educational medium, like to learn about a topic that you maybe don't know much about necessarily, but seeking it out from a small independent source who admittedly doesn't know that much about it either. So it's kind of like a compliment and encourages us to put in the work that we've put in over the past year and makes kind of the effort worth it.
Right. Well, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we can say we've got a podcast. We've got 55 episodes?
56.
56 episodes that, people can listen to and learn that are in the metaverse now.
Do you ever think you'd be doing a weekly history report for fun?
No, I didn't. I didn't enjoy history. I don't know that I ever took a history class that I properly enjoyed.
I think I enjoyed the classes. I don't know how much I enjoyed the lessons, but we've talked about that too. Like, I think I enjoy history because, and I hate that he's going to hear this and text me as I told you so type thing, but I enjoy history because my parents took us to do and consume history around the country. Like, I'm excited to one day be a parent and do that with my kids to make them learn things. But hopefully that kind of instills stuff in them someday too, to, seek out educational opportunities, even if it might not seem like what they want to do when they're younger.
Right. Well, regardless, I've had a good time doing it. I feel like we've grown and learned a lot more than we would have had we not. Now, instead of, sitting around drinking beer and talking about how we should start a podcast, we can nod and say that we did. No regrets, people.
Can always go back and re-listen to whatever the heck we were doing in 2021.
Can you imagine that, though? When you're old, you're going to be able to make people listen to this. It'll still be around. It's not going to be an analog tape that'll disintegrate over time.
That kind of scares me more. Maybe we should take it down when we're done.
In 80 years, you're going to be old, and your great-grandchild, who's going to be like generation whatever, it's going to be like 8 years old with bright pink and blue hair and live entirely on the metaverse, and they're going to find it.
I think podcasts will have long been replaced with something else
Just
by then.
Mindcasts. You just share your inner world with other people automatically through the lobes they put in our brains. Coming 2030.
And they'll be learning in school about all the stuff that we are living through right now.
Sure will.
Pandemic. Russia invading Ukraine.
Hey, we're 3 for 3. 2020, we got a pandemic.
Everything around the Trump presidency.
I mean, I feel like every year has just been historic. I can't wait to see what 2023 brings. I think the dinosaurs are going to come back
this year first.
That's my prediction for 2023. Dinosaurs return. They're going to try to clone them or something from an egg, and then it's going to be Jurassic Park and World War III. But the dinosaurs are going to turn into zombies at the same time. That's going to be it.
I didn't expect tonight to turn into dinosaurs versus zombies.
It's not versus. It's zombie dinosaurs versus the human race as it fights each other during the Third World War.
This sounds like something we're about to get into on the second half of this.
Yes, it does. I feel like I introduced Super Fight well.
Well, any parting words then before we get into that?
Sayonara, Sammy.
What?
It's from New Girl. You can cut that out.
Oh. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think I said something to this effect last week, but I just really appreciate our listeners for taking the time out of their day to choose to listen to us when there's, a sea of podcasts out there, and and for listening through episodes that are longer than I expected people to listen to us. But as I say at the end of every episode, these are a lot of fun to put together. We've learned a lot. We've found stories that we really enjoy and enjoy retelling. And it makes it all the more fulfilling to have people that enjoy hearing those and learning with us and listening to us be stupid every week.
And like I think we've kind of said before, we're obviously saying goodbye to Matt as a regular co-host of History's B-Side right now, but the podcast will continue. I'm going to kind of go Jeopardy style on our podcast for a little bit with rotating in some different special guest hosts until we kind of figure out what the future of the podcast looks like, if we have another co-host on here, or maybe I'll get Matt to free up his schedule a bit and come back, but I don't think he's gonna agree with me on that right now.
It's not happening anytime soon.
Maybe someday. But yeah, History's B-Side will go on. So we're obviously taking this week off to kind of have a little fun and just reminisce on what the podcast has been. But there will be more history next week with a guest host. And I guess I'll extend it to our listeners that if anyone is interested in jumping on as a guest host, feel free to email us, podcast@historiesbside.com. We can try to set something up. Or if you just have episode suggestions or anything like that, I'm always open to hearing them. Well, do you want to get into our bonus
Super
episode
fight.
game?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll take a quick break and then we will be back and explain how that bonus episode game works. Wait, don't skip. This isn't the same buy me a coffee ad you've heard 1,000 times.
Yeah, we know you're sick of listening to the same ads week after week. We are too. And that's why we don't use Buy Me a Coffee anymore.
But seriously, we just wanted to take a minute to tell you some ways you can support the podcast on our website, historiesbside.com.
The first and most direct way you can support our podcast is by signing up for a membership. You can join at any monthly contribution level, but we suggest $10 to start. Though, please feel free to pick whatever fits into your budget. A membership will get you access to monthly bonus episodes, show notes, future episode cues, surprise gifts, and more.
We also have on there our merch shop, which includes things like t-shirts, hoodies, hats, drinkware, bags, stuff for adults, kids, and dogs, so you can rep your favorite history podcast everywhere you go.
You'll also find extras, including free stickers, bookmarks, and postcards. You can suggest an episode topic, or submit a question about the podcast, one of our episodes, or even about us.
That website again is historiesbside.com. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome to History's B-Side Battles.
This is our members-only bonus series where we pit the stars of our show in a one-on-one hypothetical battle to the death.
This month's challengers are
Stetson Kennedy,
Stephen Foster,
Zura Karahimbi,
Augustin Harristy,
and Hetty Green.
who will reign victorious as the ultimate History's B-Side warrior.
Welcome to the championship round of History's B-Side Battles, our monthly bonus episode. We're reimagining last month's B-Siders armed with random attributes from the card game Super Fight to debate and discuss who would win in a hypothetical battle royale.
A returning champ is Nellie Bly, and this is her last chance to be dethroned, so we really got to do some good work here.
I definitely think she's won more than anyone else.
She has to have won more than anybody else. She's been up since like August.
Yeah, that's true.
I've never seen anything like it. If I was playing Super Fight with Nellie Bly, I'd probably have just given up and thrown the cards at her at this point.
Sound like my sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm. So for the listeners who don't know how this works, and I assume there are more of you this month since we're opening this up to all of our listeners, we essentially take last month's B-Siders and then randomize them in a bracket and have them face off one-on-one against each other while armed with various attributes from the card game Super Fight. And if you haven't played Super Fight, you should definitely go pick it up, especially if you're the type of person who likes to argue about nonsense. Definitely up your alley.
We're not paid for this, but we've definitely promoted Super Fight
We
quite a
have
bit on our
promoted Super
show.
Fight. And then, you know, I think maybe my one hope is that this will randomly take off after we've just left it up for a while, and eventually we can call Super Fight and they'll give us a sponsorship deal.
Maybe they'll just reach out to us and give us a very lucrative expansion pack or something.
A lucrative expansion pack.
We don't ask for much.
Maybe like, what if they made a History's B-Sides version of it and we got royalties on that? Just a history themed Super
It's a good
Fight.
idea. I mean, it's kind of what we're doing here, but it'd be kind of cool to have tons of historical, even the more well-known people, and for the lesser-known people, they just have to listen to our podcast to figure out what the cards are.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't know who Zura Karahimbi is? Our listeners do.
I feel like that's one of the redeeming qualities of Cards Against Humanity is that there are some historical references in there that you have to like look up and you learn about things. Like the Hoodoos and the Tutsis are in Cards
Oh,
Against
that's right.
Humanity.
I forgot you said that was on that. Oh.
Like that's how I learned about what those were. As unfortunate as that might be.
Cards Against Humanity, an educational card game.
A tool for the classroom.
So what we do is normally on our bonus episodes, we take the 4 or 5 people that we talked about in the past month, and then we plug them into a random tournament bracket generator, which feels very appropriate for March. That's a sports reference, Matt, just so you know.
What are sports?
There's generally lots of tournaments that happen in March. So this month we're going to have
like
the
curling
4...
tournaments? Or
No, the Olympics ended like 3 weeks ago.
ah.
So this month we're going to have the 4 people that we talked about in February, and then also Hetty Green, who just came out last week. And then what we normally do is once we have our winner from that month, we bring back our defending champion, who still is Nellie Bly against all odds. And we have our
Ridiculous.
monthly champion square off against the returning champion. And since this is kind of going to be the finale of History's B-Side battles, well, I guess we'll call whoever wins this episode the greatest fighter, History's
Yeah.
B-Sides greatest warrior. What do we call them in the intro?
I don't know. What do we call them in the intro?
The ultimate History's
The ultimate
B-Side warrior.
History's B-Side warrior.
And if you want to hear, all our past months of History's B-Side battles, definitely some great gems of arguments in them, as well as a lot of kind of rambling, bickering between us. All those can be found on our website, historiesbside.com. You just have to sign up for a membership, and then you'll have access to all of our past bonus episodes and some other cool perks. But anyway, you ready to get back into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we will randomize our contenders. And it looks like our first matchup will be Stephen Foster against Hetty Green. Then we will see Stetson Kennedy against Zura Karahimbi.
Yes.
And Augustin Harris-Thee will wait to face the winner of Stephen Foster and Hetty Green. You ready to get into them?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we typically give a little recap since it's probably been a few weeks since you heard these episodes, or at least a couple of them. So do you want to start with Stephen Foster since that's the older one?
Yeah, I'll do Stephen. So Stephen Foster was an American songwriter, one of the most important popular songwriters and composers of the 19th century. He started off his music career working for the Christie Minstrels, which was a pretty prominent minstrel show company at the time. And he wrote about a pretty broad selection of American topics, such as temperance. He wrote some religious-themed music. He addressed race and the Civil War from both sides of that conflict, and really just wrote in general about American pop culture, and also had a way of mixing musical styles from different groups, especially immigrant groups at that time, and finding a way to blend those styles into something unique and catchy. He's kind of the 19th century's version of Max Martin, and he released over 200 songs during his career.
Did you also talk about him being a racist and alcoholic?
Well, there's that too. He was a racist and an alcoholic. But nonetheless, his songwriting was prolific, and he was able to penetrate. Rare.
Goodness gracious.
He was able to penetrate American pop culture for decades, if not centuries, because we still know some of his songs today.
And Hetty Green, I'm going to bank on our listeners having just listened to these chronological and just heard her story fairly recently. But she was, in her time, America's wealthiest woman, potentially the wealthiest woman in the world. She was a financier who grew up in the Gilded Age, actually probably fairly close to the same time period as Stephen Foster. She was a little bit younger than him, but their lives would have overlapped a bit. But she was from a wealthy whaling family, which means her family had money, much of which she inherited, so she started out fairly wealthy. She was also very, very good at investments, particularly in real estate and trading stocks, and she was kind of on par wealth-wise with people like J.P. Morgan and John D. Rockefeller. Her strategy was around value investing. She was one of the people that really pioneered the buy low, sell high strategy, but probably the most notable thing about her was her legendary thriftiness. She was very, very cheap. She did not like to spend money at all and actively sought ways to avoid spending money on things, even at the expense of her own personal comfort and her son's leg.
I was about to say, even to the extent of amputation.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a goofy story. She's definitely one of the more interesting B-siders in that she kind of was one of the only women in this field at the time. And we don't think of her when we think of the super wealthy class of the late 1800s. But, I mean, her eccentricities are kind of the way she's more remembered today, which is, I guess, kind of sad because there's probably some misogyny involved in that, but also it was a very weird way to live.
It was a weird way to live. Makes you question the entire system.
Right. So what we do for these matchups is grab two attributes from the card game Super Fight. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It could be something like, I don't know, has an army behind them, or it could be something like shoes are constantly untied. So we don't really know what it's going to be until we draw the cards, but we try to argue our case to see who we think would win in the fight with the cards that were dealt. And since Matt and I are on opposite sides of the country, I have the cards on my side, so he's going to pick either my right hand or my left hand to guess or to decide which card he's going to have.
Your right hand.
Ooh. Stephen Foster can control gravity.
That seems useful.
However, Hetty Green is riding a flying narwhal.
Oh, super easy.
Why is that super easy?
I'm not going to tell you yet.
Well, now's the time, sir.
So because I can control gravity, I mean, the flying narwhal is really just a detriment to you because you're in the air on the flying narwhal and it's already a heavy animal to be flying with. But, you know, once I'm make the Earth completely free of gravity, you'll end up floating into space. And then I'll quickly turn on the gravity to a higher level so that the narwhal and you crash back to Earth at lightning speeds, burning you up in the atmosphere, if not killing you upon impact.
I think you're misunderstanding the concept of flying. I will concede that some level of gravity is required to keep me within the Earth's atmosphere. However, flying is kind of, you know, the antithesis of gravity.
No, you have to have the proper lift to counteract gravity. So if all of a sudden gravity increases, you won't have that lift anymore.
See, here's the thing.
Unless your narwhal has adjustable wings, which I neglect to
There's
accept.
no stipulations on my limitations for flying. It's not like I'm flying a canary or something, like a small bird. This is a mythical flying.
I mean, that's fair, but I also don't buy that a mythical flying narwhal could just...
Why not? It's mythical.
adjust to extreme forms of gravity.
All right, I have a question that's going to make me sound dumb, but I feel that this doesn't compromise my intelligence on history topics. Is a narwhal a real thing or is it a mythical creature?
It's a whale.
I can't even picture it. It's a whale with like a unicorn horn, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is a real thing.
Okay.
It's a sea creature.
That's weird.
Biology with history's B-side.
I was never sure on that, whether that was a real animal or just a mythical thing.
Yeah, they're weird sea creatures with their little spikes.
Okay, but regardless, they wouldn't normally fly. So
True.
I don't think we can place any stipulations on my ability to fly because clearly this card has given a non-flying creature the ability to fly.
That's true. Well, in
So I'm
that
just going to
case,
fly around and aim for you and slam into you whenever I can find you. And I'm going to, use my vast amounts of wealth to make people do things to conspire against you.
I'm one of the
and
most
probably
popular
just
American
wait you out.
songwriters. People are going to want me around more than they want you.
I don't think people really wanted you around or Stephen Foster around because he was kind of a jerk.
Yeah, but he's really
drunk.
only considered a jerk in
And
hindsight.
his alcoholism potentially killed him anyway.
That's true.
Whereas
But
Hetty
I'm also
Green
able
lived
to
a
write a
long
catchy
life.
tune. Which I feel like I could write a tune catchy enough to hypnotize the American public into attacking you for me.
I think that might be a bit of a stretch.
All right, I concede. The only other better argument I have would just kill me too, which is to take...
We've decided in past episodes that we can't kill ourselves to kill the other person.
Yeah. Well, if you took
No
all the
mutual
gravity
death.
away, the atmosphere would float away and it would suffocate
That's true.
all
you would
three
too.
of us to death. You, me, and the narwhal. Well, not you and me. Hetty Green, Stephen Foster, and the narwhal.
19th century America was wild.
As are narwhals.
Round
Right.
2. These were both my topics, so I'll let you pick which one you want to be responsible for here. But Stetson Kennedy was an American writer and folklorist who did a lot of research on the folk culture of the state of Florida, but he's most noted for having gone undercover to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the information that he learned while he was doing that helped really bring down the KKK, like kind of expose a lot of their secrets and kind of just how goofy the entire organization was. And it made people sort of be embarrassed to be affiliated with the KKK or not want it to be known publicly that they were affiliated with it. So their membership numbers dropped quite a bit. And he really sort of did a lot of damage to the organization and had a lot to do with why their numbers decreased so significantly in the late 1940s. It did later come out that his stories of his infiltration might have been a bit embellished. It's possible that he had help from an unknown source or an unnamed source who actually did the infiltrating and exposing a lot of the secrets, and he kind of took some of the credit or took some of the story as his own. But it's kind of debated as to like how much he actually did, although the point being that the other person didn't want the exposure, so he was the one who kind of took the step to put his own name to it and thereby putting himself at risk. So I don't know, interesting character, definitely has a little bit of folklore to himself too, but
Yeah.
a unique story worth telling. The other person we're talking about in this matchup is Zura Karahimbi, who was a woman who lived during the Rwandan genocide in the early 1990s. She was a healer, so a healer using traditional medicine purposes. So a lot of local people actually believe that she might have been a witch. She admitted later in life that she was not actually a witch, but kind of played into that sort of superstition to help her hide over 100 people during the Rwandan genocide. Regardless of their race or classification, she was just welcoming people into her home to help protect them from just the mass killings and rapes and all the horrible atrocities that took place during that historical event. She did so by kind of playing into this witch label. She kind of made potential attackers believed that she could harm them, or she would cast spells on them, or call wicked spirits to possess them or to eat them. So it was really kind of a funny story, the way that some people bought into this, but it all paid off for her to hide 100 people in her tiny little home and saved every one of their lives. So she's definitely a hero, albeit a pretty unique one.
Yeah.
So do you have a preference between which one you want to
I mean, of course I want
have in this
Zura.
matchup? Well, frail old woman, I'll be able to take you down easily.
Oh, you don't trust in the power of witchcraft.
If you pick the right card on this one, it's over.
I want the right card.
Oh, good. That'll make it more interesting.
Dang.
Zura Karahimbi can't stop clapping.
All right. I mean, that kind of tracks.
Stetson Kennedy has a voodoo doll of his opponent.
Oh, dang. That would have been good.
Yeah, that would have been more appropriate for Zura Karahimbi. I don't even want to do this, but I gotta win the super fight battle, so I'm gonna have to start doing some terrible things to this voodoo doll.
That's fine. It's just a doll.
It's a voodoo doll.
Yeah,
Obviously,
but it doesn't
you're
work
going
on
to-
me.
Why would it not? It's a voodoo doll. Do you not know how voodoo dolls work?
Because I'm a witch and I can counteract
She's
it
not a
and
witch.
defend myself from it.
She admitted she's not a witch.
She's a healer, and I can heal myself and call the wicked spirits to block the voodoo doll attacks.
So what if I just rip the head off of the doll?
It doesn't matter. I've already defended myself from it with the spirits.
That's not how that works.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please explain to me how magic works. Let's hear it.
That's true. You're calling spirits to protect you from a voodoo doll feels very counterintuitive on both of our parts. Only my voodoo doll is real and yours is an act that you're using to lie to evil Hutu people.
What do you mean by real?
I have a card that says I have a voodoo doll, so I am taking that to mean that my voodoo doll is real.
Like, not imaginary?
Like, if I do things to the voodoo doll, Zura Karahimbi feels it.
Yeah, but that's the same kind of, like, hoo-ha acting magic that Zura Kurihime.
What I'm saying by real is that it's not hoo-ha acting magic because my card says I have that, which makes, if we're
well, that doesn't
buying
make
into
any
the
sense.
laws of super fight, then the attributes are real.
I think the laws of super fighter that you argue as best as you can, and my argument is that voodoo dolls don't actually do anything.
You could have just made the same argument that narwhals can't fly, so my card isn't real.
Well, no, because it specifically said that the narwhal was flying. It doesn't say that this voodoo doll definitely works.
I think we're stretching the rules of super fight.
I think the card should be written has a voodoo doll that actually
Has
works.
a working voodoo doll. What was your attribute? You can't stop clapping. How are you going to cast? You're going to scare all the spirits away with your clapping.
No, I'm scaring you away. You're afraid to use the voodoo doll against me.
I don't
'cause
have
I've
to go near
convinced
you.
From inside my
I can
house.
use the voodoo doll on the other side of the world. I'm in Florida. You're in.
No.
Rwanda.
See, that's the other thing is voodoo dolls only have a range of like 150
No,
miles.
they don't. You're just making stuff up.
Literally, the average layman knows for a fact that voodoo dolls don't work when you're over 150
They
miles
have a
away.
radius.
That's like the most basic fact you learn about
What if they're
voodoo
connected to
magic.
Wi-Fi?
Oh, well, if you have Wi-Fi, then it's a done deal. I've lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Stetson Kennedy lived until like the 20 teens or something. I can't remember the year he died, but he died fairly recently. So he was around for Wi-Fi is the argument I'm making.
Do you think there was Wi-Fi in 1917?
Stetson Kennedy lived until the 20 teens. I can't remember the year
I thought
he
you
died,
said
but he
19
died.
teens.
No, he died within the last decade or two.
No, he did make it to Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So did Zura.
Yes, but I imagine the Wi-Fi signal is probably better in Florida than it is in Rwanda.
I don't know. It is Florida. I'm so glad. 56 episodes I got to make a Florida joke. I've been waiting since
We
day
did a whole
one.
episode on Stetson Kennedy. You could have made tons of Florida jokes.
I know. It didn't
Plus,
feel like the right time. Just
Gregor
reading a
McGregor
room.
went to Florida too.
That's true.
Wouldn't be a final episode without Barley in there.
Barley's unhappy that I'm losing this argument. It's all in the draw.
Well, are you admitting that Stetson Kennedy moves on then?
I guess so. Bye, Zura.
Down to your last person.
Augustin's
I guess
coming for your ass.
I technically am too.
He's the sheriff of San Diego. Population 200. Just 200.
You want to give a quick bio on Augustin Harristy?
Augustin Harristy was a Hungarian-born American immigrant who came here to escape the rigidness of, what would you call it, feudal Hungary? The noble system in Hungary, to come to the land of economic prosperity and opportunity that is and was America at the time he immigrated in the mid-19th century. He quickly set up a homestead in Wisconsin, which was at the time a new territory, founding the first incorporated village at the time known as Harristy Town. Very, very modest. He then went west to California, where he became the first sheriff of San Diego, back when it was a town of only 200 people. But it was none of these feats that made him truly legendary. After leaving San Diego for the more vine-friendly north near San Francisco, Augustin Harristy began pretty much a 20 to 30 year career trying to figure out how to grow European grapevines in California and really kickstarting the industry there in Sonoma. He was responsible for bringing dozens of varieties of grapevine back from Europe, from some of the most world-renowned wine regions, and distributing these to vintners and farmers in Sonoma. He's also the founder of one of the oldest continuously operating wineries in California. That is until his business fell apart and he had to leave for Nicaragua, chasing not wine, but rum. And in the process of building his rum production facility, he managed to get himself eaten by an alligator. Wah wah.
Talk about Florida. There's your Florida joke.
Augustin Harristy. It's going to be terrible if the card you draw is like, has a pet alligator, is riding a flying alligator.
And then he'll, of course, be facing off against Hetty Green, who won our first matchup. So I guess we will stick with the topics that we know best. What do you want? Right or left hand?
Left.
All right. Augustin Harristy can clone himself, but each clone is half as smart as the previous. And Hetty Green can walk through solid objects.
All right. Well, I think this is fairly obvious.
I don't know how I'm going to get an alligator or several alligators.
I'm just going to run towards you while cloning myself and smother you in Augustin Harristy's. Easy.
I just walk right through you.
You can't walk through all of us.
Can walk through solid objects.
Okay, so I knock you down first and then smother you.
Why couldn't I just stand up through you?
Because it doesn't say you can stand up through solid objects. It says you can
Stop
walk through
playing
solid
semantics
objects.
here.
No! I will defend how I feel I should defend. And this is my defense.
I think I'd be able to go right through you. Plus, your clones are just going to keep getting dumber and dumber. It's going to be like herding cats at some point. You're not going to be able to control them.
Well, I don't really have to control them.
If you want them to coordinated smother me.
I mean, I could just clone myself millions of times until I'm just a huge crowd of people
They're just
that
going to
you'll
be wandering
never kill.
around completely dumb everywhere.
That's fine. My point is I could continuously clone myself at a rate faster than you could kill Augustin Harristy's, thereby allowing me to permanently escape you, eventually allowing me to disguise myself, get a hammer, sneak up behind you, and crack you in the back of the skull. It's game over. Plus, you're not going to want to get any weapons. You don't even spend money on healthcare. You're going to look at the price of a Smith & Wesson and
I think
give
I just need to kill you.
Yeah, but you're not
Like
going to know
the
which one
original.
is me if
The
there's a
smartest
bunch of
one.
clone. Well, how are you going to know what the difference between the smartest and the second smartest one is?
I feel like half as dumb or half as smart is like a pretty significant difference.
It is. There's
That
only
the
going to be like
first
a
clone
couple.
will be pretty pretty obvious which one's a clone, and then beyond that, they're just going to keep getting worse.
I mean, here's the thing. Eventually, you're just going to have hundreds of feral Augustin Aristes running around like animals. And
If I
one
have
of them is
30 to
going to
50
have the
feral
impulse to
hogs
attack
charging
you.
on my yard.
I mean, I feel like this is just over. He had a gun.
I don't agree that it's as easy of a fight as you're making it sound like it's going to be. But I do agree that there's going to be a lot of you, and Hetty Green is not going to spend the money required to take out an army of really dumb August Aristes.
Nope.
The only thing I could suggest is that, like, you're an immigrant. So this is already a great argument that I'm making. You're an immigrant, and Hetty Green came up during the Gilded Age, which most immigrants kind of became part of the working class that were extremely impoverished. Especially with so many of you, you're going to completely flood the workers' market.
I'm not working. I'm trying to kill you. I'm feral. Or most of me are feral.
You're going to flood the workforce with dumb, unskilled labor, and all of that's just going to pale in comparison to the super wealthy financier that is Hetty Green. So, I don't know. I don't think that socially you will be able to compete with her.
If I flood the workforce and fuck up the economy, then you're going to lose money too.
The super wealthy always come out on top. They'll be fine.
You're right, but I'm still cloning myself over and over and over again. Every second of every day, just filling up the world with my dumber and dumber feral selves. Until I'm literally nothing but a lump of cells that can't even control its nervous system. But still filling up the earth nonetheless. Minute by minute. Cloning and cloning and cloning.
There aren't enough alligators in the world.
Nope. I'll fill up the lakes and rivers with Augustin Aristes.
Okay, I'll let you have this one.
I just love how cartoonish that got. It makes me so happy. You should look up a picture of this guy. It's really funny when you know what he looks like, and you just imagine like hundreds of him just like.
Okay. Our championship round, we generally do 2 attributes each, so it's going to be Augustin Harisley versus Stetson Kennedy. I don't think we need to recap their bios, but we'll go ahead with their first attribute.
Right hand.
And your second.
Right hand.
All right. Augustin Harisley is wearing an impenetrable tuxedo and has jellyfish instead of hands.
Nice. Gator's not going to get me now.
Stetson Kennedy is armed with a portal gun, but also is agoraphobic.
Man, it would have sucked to have the cloning card and against somebody agoraphobic. I'm worried about this portal gun situation. It doesn't make it easy for me to catch you.
So I think the portal gun kind of negates the agoraphobia because I'd be able to get out of any situation pretty quickly, right? The tuxedo makes me nervous.
Yeah,
I think the jellyfish is working against you unless you can get close enough to me to zap me.
Why are they working against me?
You can't pick anything up. Your hands are jellyfish.
My hands are weapons. I don't need to pick anything
but
up.
Only if you can get close enough to me, which I don't think you'll be able to with the portal gun.
Well, if I can clone myself, I just make one of me.
You can't clone yourself. You lost that attribute.
I was hoping to slide that by you.
It's a new round, new life.
I think it's pretty simple. I just I become sheriff of the town that you live in, much like I did in San Diego, and then I arrest you.
I don't think it would be as easily to become sheriff in Florida as it was in California in that time.
Why not?
Because Florida's already established.
It is already established.
Or, Atlanta, which is where Stetson Kennedy moved when he infiltrated the KKK.
I feel like you're missing your best argument.
Can I use the portal gun to zap you to an alligator pit?
I was going to say just wait in Florida, but you could also zap me to Florida.
Oh. That's a good point. Yeah, I should do that.
But I do have an impenetrable tuxedo that the alligators are going to have a hard time biting through.
Well, a tuxedo doesn't cover your head.
It's true.
They could bite your head off.
They could.
I would just portal you into some alligator-infested waters.
I feel like I just lost this argument for myself.
I mean, I didn't think about the Florida connection, but I was getting there anyway. Are jellyfish effective against alligators?
Oh, for sure. I just zap the alligators into submission, and then I climb out of the bog, and I come and find you.
I just smacked the crap out of my microphone. That's going to sound great for the listeners.
Microphone abuse is no joke.
Jellyfish versus alligator. Things I never expected to Google. There's a YouTube video of jellyfish versus crocodile, but is that obviously not the same?
I feel like I win.
Why?
It's a jellyfish. Stings you, you die. Easy peasy. I'm home by lunch.
You wouldn't be able to get close to me. We already made that argument.
You're right. I can throw the jellyfish at you.
No, you can't. They're your hands. They're not in your hands.
Amputate one of my hands and throw my hand at you.
Then you bleed out.
Not before the jellyfish takes you.
I'll just zap it away with my portal gun.
I think the portal gun wins this for you. For sure.
I'm really disappointed I couldn't find like a jellyfish versus alligator argument on Google. But if you're admitting defeat, then I'll take it.
I am admitting defeat.
All right. Stetson Kennedy wins our monthly champion, which means he will face off against our defending champion, Nellie Bly.
Nellie Bly, baby.
Just to quickly recap that for our listeners, if you haven't heard that episode in several months, Nellie Bly was a female journalist known as the pioneer of investigative journalism. She went undercover to research and report on some pretty interesting things. She spent, I think, about a week in an insane asylum. A week in an insane asylum, and then 6 months in Mexico to report on their government there. She also took jobs in factories to talk about the harsh treatment of women working in those jobs. But she's most known for having taken on Jules Verne's fictional novel, Around the World in 80 Days, by literally traveling around the world in only 72 days while racing against a journalist from another publication. In her time, she was a bit of a celebrity. She continued to work as a journalist until eventually leaving the paper to write novels, and then eventually running a business, which she was not as successful in, but still pretty well known in her time. Although her fame has kind of faded a bit since then, she still is a very interesting story, and some of her writings have actually just been dug up fairly recently, about a year ago, I think. So if you wanted to find some Nellie Bly, or her actual name was Elizabeth Cochran, you'd be able to read those today. Which one do you want to... What side do you want here?
I really want to take down Nellie Bly, so I feel like I should take Stetson Kennedy.
All right. For context, for our listeners who haven't heard any of this before, there's no reason for Nellie Bly to still be our defending champion. She's not like a particularly dominant fighter or anything. Like, we've had much better people equipped to fight, but she's drawn some really crazy attributes that seem to win for her almost every single month that we've done this. Ready?
Yes, sir. Give me the left. Give me the left. Give me the left. Right.
All right. So this will be interesting. Stetson Kennedy sprays neurotoxins.
I like it.
However, he's a pacifist. Nellie Bly is armed with a poison-tipped lance and can hold her breath forever.
So you just have one poison-tipped lance?
Correct.
I feel like this is easy. I just wait till you're sleeping, go to the vent on your home and spray the neurotoxins in your home.
Why would a pacifist do that?
Self-preservation. Self-defense.
Is that how pacifists work? I don't think so.
Not necessarily, but I feel like I could choose to not be a pacifist for a moment.
I don't think the neurotoxins would affect me because I'm going to hold my breath forever.
Is that what it says? You're going to hold your breath while you're sleeping?
Yes.
How are you going to remember to hold your breath while you're sleeping?
I don't know. It says I can do it forever, which I assume includes sleeping.
Well, yeah, but you have to be conscious to continue to do it.
It doesn't say that. It wouldn't say forever then. It would just say while sleeping or while conscious.
What does the card say?
Can hold breath forever.
Can. Not must, not will, but can. Which means you have the option
possible. It means it's possible.
And you have to choose to based on that. I don't think it means that you just by default
No, it just says that
your breath.
I can do it. If I can't do it while sleeping,
but what I'm saying
I wouldn't be able to do it.
Is that you have to be able, it's an action that you have to be able to do. It's not an automatic nervous system response to not breathe. So you'd have to be conscious to continue to hold your breath. And the moment you fall asleep,
it's something that I can do. The card says can, which means I can do it.
You have to be awake to do it.
No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say while awake or while conscious. It says can hold breath forever.
Right, can. Has
this
the
is
option
great
to.
Entertainment right now. Us arguing semantics here.
You have to be able.
No, it doesn't say that on the card. If that was the case, it would say
to.
while awake or while conscious.
It says you're able to.
Can hold breath forever. It literally means I never have to breathe again.
But I feel like they still enter your system. Like if I spray them into your house, you eat them. I'll spray them into your food. You have to eat. I'll spray them into your water supply. You have to drink.
I don't think Nellie Bly would do this. This is you actively doing something. A pacifist wouldn't actively be attacking me. If I was coming after you, I could see a pacifist acting in self-defense, but a pacifist does not actively go out and attack someone, which is what you're doing here.
Yeah, but I have to for self-defense because I know you're going to kill me otherwise.
You don't have to. You could just run away from it. You could shy away from the argument or for the fight.
That's true. I leave the area. I flee.
Good thing Nellie Bly has connections to travel all around the world. She'll hunt you down with her poison-tipped lance.
And then I'll get her with my neurotoxins.
No, I'll be holding my breath.
I don't have to spray. You don't have to breathe them in.
How do neurotoxins work?
They just get into your system any way they want. I could spray them into your mouth.
But they wouldn't kill me immediately. They would take some time.
I feel like it would happen pretty quickly.
Not as quickly as a poison-tipped lance would kill you.
Yeah, but you'd miss the first time with that. She wasn't a sharpshooter.
You can't bank on that.
Okay, but you can't bank on
thing.
hitting me either. You only have one.
I don't throw it. I stab you with it. It's a lance. It's not an arrow.
What makes you think you can get that close to me?
Why couldn't I? You don't have like a force field or anything. You're not particularly good at moving around.
Because I'm a man. And men
Nellie Bly
can
traveled
run
the
faster
world with
than women.
only a handbag.
Yeah, but she didn't run around the world with only a handbag. Plus, he infiltrated
Doesn't say I have
the
to run.
KKK.
I could be on a ship or a train or whatever else.
I feel like he could infiltrate her like entourage or her newspaper and sneak up on her. Just fill the coffee mug or coffee pot at the office with neurotoxins.
What makes you think she drinks coffee?
She's a journalist from New York.
She's not from New York. She's from Pittsburgh.
From Pittsburgh. Of course she drinks coffee.
Not necessarily.
It's the only way to do a job like that.
It's a valid point, but I don't think this is again you seeking out an attack on me.
It is.
You're not acting in self-defense.
I think
I think Nellie Bly is our champion.
I think I would just join your party and you wouldn't know I was there because I'm an undercover agent. And
I'm an undercover agent.
Well, I am. Wasn't he an undercover reporter?
I don't know that he was acting as a reporter, but he was a writer who supposedly went undercover.
So two undercover writers face off.
And they both went to Europe.
It's true.
But only one made it around the world.
I don't have to necessarily make it around the world. I just have to make it away from you and your singular spear that you could easily miss with.
I'm not throwing it, dude.
I'm also part of the KKK, so I feel like I could encourage them to help me.
That's who you want on your side.
Told you I will pull out all the stops to stop Nellie
In this
Bly.
argument, you've insulted women and said that you're a part of the KKK.
I didn't insult women. I said men could run faster on average, which is true.
I feel like Nellie Bly could run.
She probably could. I don't think she could run as fast as Stetson Kennedy.
What makes you think that?
I just explained it. What makes me think that is that neither of them are world-class athletes, which means they're probably both perfectly average runners. Given the fact that they were both, very active in their careers, I assume they're in some, slightly above average, but still average conditional shape. And so we're really dealing with an average man and an average woman. And if you take that into account, Stetson Kennedy is going to be able to outrun her.
All right. It's all going to come down to the fact that they have to be confrontational at some point, because Stetson Kennedy is not going to seek out an attack on Nellie Bly because he's a pacifist. So at some point, they're going to have to cross paths when he waits for her to attack him and can act in self-defense.
I could also just get on a plane.
What does that have to do with anything?
Or I would get on a plane. You couldn't follow me onto the plane.
Why not?
Because you died before
Because I have the
planes.
lance and I have to check it.
Well, that's a good point. You'd have the lance and you'd have to check it. But also, you died before planes were a thing. I didn't. Boom.
Okay. Did she?
I don't know.
No, she didn't.
When did she die?
She died in 1922. So planes weren't a big thing, but they were a thing.
So
regardless,
she can't get on a
we've
jet plane.
already established that our B-side battles happen in a neutral universe where they all
Multiverse.
exist at the same time period.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let me finish my argument here. The only confrontation is happening when they are together, because you're not going to seek out a fight with me because you're a pacifist, and I can only attack you with my poison-tipped lance, which requires me to be within some proximity of you. Assuming that we both attack each other at relatively the same time, because you're going to act in self-defense, the poison-tipped lance is going to kill you before your neurotoxins kill me. So we might both die, but you will die first. That is my argument.
My argument is that I get on the plane. You follow me onto the plane.
Stop it with the plane.
I poison the pilot with the neurotoxins.
Then you're going to die. I'm
Jump
not on
out
the
of the plane, parachute to the ground. You crash and die along with everyone on board.
You just said I'm not on the plane.
I said you followed me onto the plane.
Why wouldn't I jump out with you?
You don't have a parachute.
Says who? Why do you have a parachute?
Because I thought to bring one. You don't know the plane's going to crash to the ground, so you didn't think to bring one. I planned
I
it.
want to commend you for trying to drag this out enough to beat Nellie Bly, but it's not happening. She's too good. She's the
not
people's
too good.
champion.
Her cards are too good.
She is the ultimate history's B-side warrior.
I think I could take Nellie Bly. If she appeared in my kitchen right now,
Oh, she had a poison-tipped lance.
I'd still give myself a pretty good odds.
Wow, she died 100 years ago. I just thought of that.
Yeah, see, she's old. I could do it.
Well, that's the bonus episode that you guys have been missing out on for a year.
Frickin' Nellie Bly.
Possibly, not everyone, but
This is
some of you have been
depressing.
missing out on for a year. If you'd like to go back and hear all of our past bonus episodes, they are available on historiesbside.com. You just have to join as a membership. We recommend $10 a month, but you can join for whatever amount that your budget allows and that you're comfortable contributing to the show. We definitely appreciate our members. And even though this is the finale of History's B-Side Battles, there will be a new bonus episode series starting. That first one will come out on April 1st. So join as a member and you'll be able to hear those over there. And I just really want to say thank you to Matt for helping me put all these together for the last over a year. Been a great podcast partner, very good friend of mine for long before we've been doing the podcasts, and appreciate all of your hard work and your help doing these, and definitely would not have been the same show without you. So we'll see if we can keep it going.
Thanks, guys. History's B-Side is an independent, listener-supported podcast.
Leave us a review or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting service. And follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at History's B-Side.
Send us your feedback or inquire about sponsorship and advertising opportunities by emailing us at podcast@historiesbside.com.
You can support the show by becoming a member or making a one-time contribution at historiesbside.com. While you're there, check out our merch shop, extras, and more.
This episode was researched and produced by your hosts, Matt Melito
and Philip Hall. Thanks for listening to History's B-Side.
That's all she wrote. What's Bugs Bunny's sign-off thing? I want to use that.
Folks.
That's all, folks. Boop, boop. I should probably stop recording.